Hello. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on the Parkside Parent Podcast. My name is Danny Shalero. I'm the high school pastor at Parkside Church. It's our mission in children and student ministry at Parkside Church to support families as we help unbelieving children and students become committed followers of Jesus Christ. Today, we're glad to welcome on Michael Koerth, who is one of our volunteer adult ministry leaders in middle school ministry. And Robbie will be discussing with Michael the question, why serve in student ministry?
Michael, thank you for joining me today on the Parkside Parent Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you on this as a good friend and as a person who's been serving in the middle school ministry for quite a number of years now. We over the course of the last few episodes, we've been talking a lot about the overall picture of student and children's ministry. Mm-hmm. But today, I want to talk a little bit about some of the practicalities of student ministry, so we can have someone with experience talk about their experience. And I want to talk about what it looks like a bit, just a glimpse into what it looks like to serve in the student ministry here at Parkside. We'll talk about the ups and downs and why someone should consider serving. Mm-hmm. But before I go into those things, how did you get involved into Parkside's student ministry in middle school?
So it's actually a pretty kind of a funny story, I guess. I was pretty new at Parkside at the time, and I was helping with transit with the worship band.
Yeah. And
the worship leader of the transit band was also the leader or in the band at the middle school ministry. They were looking for a drummer at the time, and I happened to play the drums, and so he asked if I would be interested in serving. So I said, okay, well, I'll think about it and consider, prayerfully, whether this is something I want to do, especially being so new at Parkside. But actually, as a middle schooler, I had some really helpful leaders. And so the more I thought about it, the more I prayed about it, it just seemed like, man, this is a really good way to not necessarily give it back to the same church, because I grew up in the Youngstown area, but a way to give back to the church at large in serving in a ministry that really meant a lot to me when I was in middle school.
To kind of do what impacted you when you were a middle schooler and kind of give that back to students, right?
Exactly, yeah.
How long have you been in student ministry?
So this is my 5th year helping out with the middle school. Yeah,
that's great. This is kind of a funny question, but why have you stayed for so long?
It's just been really kind of a rewarding experience, and so I'm passionate about seeing the middle schoolers develop deeper relationships with Jesus.
With Jesus, yeah. That's awesome. Well, even though it is a rewarding experience, maybe talk a little bit about those rewarding experiences, but also what have been some of the worst parts or some of the most challenging parts in student ministry?
Yeah, so it's rewarding, but it definitely is challenging. Sometimes it varies week by week, depending on, I don't know, I'm not sure exactly what the variables are that cause students to act one way one week and a different way another week, but sometimes it's most challenging when you feel like you're speaking to an empty room. You're not sure if anyone's listening. At least the body language might be showing you that. But then it's been really rewarding 6 weeks later when you realize, hey, the student was listening, whether they looked like it or not. And they start to be able to articulate some of these ideas and the main story of the gospel on their own. Yeah. And you can tell that it's not just something they're repeating, but something that they're really starting to believe.
Yeah, that's great. Middle school ministry, I guess, certainly isn't the place for instant gratification, but over time, you do eventually see fruit, and we thank God for that. Is there any encouraging story you might want to share for any parent or leader listening about some of the rewarding experiences?
It's kind of funny. Some of the most rewarding times have been in developing those relationships with students and then even getting to know their parents. Yeah. There was an event, I think last winter, that my wife and I were able to go to, which I don't think I ever would have ended up at otherwise. It was a Rubik's Cube solving competition. And so we were able to spend the day at a local middle school and just kind of observe and kind of get to know this competition that my wife and I never would have known about otherwise. But we had just a really fun time getting to spend time with the student and his parents who were there, and getting to talk to them a little bit, which was really cool to hear what their passion is for raising their children and how they viewed middle school ministry as being helpful to that idea.
It is amazing how in the church we can have, a student can have so many gospel influences in their life. Their parents, a leader, maybe an older person or mentor or something like that. And so it's just amazing to see that actually happen. In student ministry, that happens a lot. Is there anything you wish you would have known before you started?
Probably I'd say the biggest thing would be, it's okay if it doesn't seem like a student really likes you or doesn't want to really listen to you, because you might wait 2 years and that might change completely.
Yeah.
So I just think just trusting that God is the one doing the work in the students' hearts, and you're there to serve, but you're not there to change their hearts on your own, is huge.
Exactly. Yeah. So with everything we've been talking about, Michael, why should someone consider joining student ministry?
I'd say it'd be the same reason that someone should consider joining any ministry at the church, to bring unbelieving people, whether that's students or adults, closer to a committed relationship with Jesus, and just being part of God's larger plan for someone's life, letting him use you in that way.
Yeah, definitely. Letting him use us in our service. If someone listening, let's say someone's listening, maybe they're a younger person in the church, they're thinking about leading for student ministry, and they're on the edge, they're not sure. What would you say to that person who's on the edge of serving, about to serve?
I'd say it's a great place to start if you're looking for somewhere to get plugged in at Parkside.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's what I did. I really didn't know a ton of people at Parkside when I started. But it is a fairly easy place to serve because, generally speaking, there are some students that are a little bit harder to get to know, but in general, as long as you're an adult who's not necessarily there related to them and or a teacher or something like that, it means a lot that that someone comes to spend time with them and just invest in a relationship. Especially, I think it's helpful to see that someone who's grown up agrees with what their parents have been telling them all along. And so it's just a great place to start, and it's pretty easy to get plugged in.
Yeah, no, I agree. When I transferred colleges, I came here. I didn't, all my other friends were at college, and someone approached me about doing middle school, and I started doing middle school, and I started making friends right away. That was just a small benefit, but also it forced me to look at the Bible more deeply, too. I think that's definitely one of the benefits, so that I would teach the kids, right, what the Bible's actually saying. So, and in that way, you receive, benefit from that, and the kids do too. So I think that's what I would say. But thank you for your answers. They've been extremely helpful. We hope they're helpful to any leader listening or any parents. So thank you again, Michael, for coming on. We really appreciate that you're giving us some boots on the ground experience and insight into the student ministry here.
Sure thing.
Thanks for joining us on the Parkside Parent Podcast today. Be sure to check out the show notes for resources related to today's topic. And also be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify so that you can keep up with our weekly episodes as they come out every Monday. Join us next week as we talk to Jonathan Holmes and answer the question, how do I parent during a pandemic?